What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Business Leaders Podcast. My name is Justin Tichinell, and today I'm very excited to welcome to the podcast Chris Shreeve from Vokol AI. Vokol is the first dedicated AI audio creation platform that's actually built specifically for sports. So they work with teams, leagues, betting and fantasy platforms, and creators to essentially turn their ideas and it could be written content and insights into on-brand audio for fans. So it's just a better way to engage with their fans and audience. And so with that being said, obviously over the last couple of years with the advent of AI and how things have been fastly evolving over, really since after COVID, audio is kind of turned into this thing where it's not just a nice to have, but it's also an engagement tool that people use in sports. A lot of teams and leagues and even former athletes and current athletes use podcasts to enhance whatever it is that they're trying to talk about. So there, as fans continue to consume more of this audio content, you built and with the background that you've had about building and exiting multiple companies in the past, what gaps specifically did you guys see with that all in mind with audio and AI?
Yeah, well, let me kind of talk about kind of the beginning of the company and then kind of how we got to today. But for me, look, I've been in sports tech in a few different stops. Own my own marketing and advertising agency, but admittedly, a year ago, I wasn't using AI tools. I'm a pick the phone up, create relationships, have calls, like type of guy. My now business partner Mark reaches out to me, about a year ago because of my LinkedIn posting and some of the thought leadership that I do online, with this idea to leverage AI, in particular AI voice, to really create personalized fan experiences using audio. I had no idea what that meant at the time. A year ago, we hadn't really heard about 11 Labs. We didn't really know about Notebook LM. But at the end of last year, something happened with Spotify. They announced their end of year recap in audio. They sent you this personalized audio format that took in all of your customized first party data and transformed it into a podcast. My business partner, ahead of that launch, had the idea of using these AI voices that were not your robotic, text to speech models or call center audio. It's these real, immersive, engaging, emotionally intelligent AI voices. But he wanted to use it for sports. And I thought, gosh, sports is all about discussion, conversation. It's why there's multiple broadcasters. It's why podcasts have multiple people. And fans love audio. Um, 52 billion hours of audio listened to in the last 12 months from sports fans. Fans are listening to between 7 to 9 hours per week of sports audio. Um, but that audio is still mass media centric. Maybe it's regionalized, maybe it's focused on a sport. But AI is enabling us to do things that we previously couldn't do because of just the sheer, human bandwidth issues. And so when we talk about the use case of AI, particularly in sports, a lot of the conversation starts with back end operational efficiency, people using ChatGPT to ask questions. I think where we're trying to get out ahead of is using AI to personalize the fan experience and to use a medium, AI voice, that can actually speak to fans, right? I think it's interesting that a lot of companies are rushing to integrate chatbots, right? And to use AI in a way to engage with fans using text. And this isn't to say that written content and text isn't extremely valuable. It is, but younger fans want to listen, they want to watch. And so, what we want to empower sports marketers to do is use this technology to automate the creation of audio content, and to do it at scale with automation. and to really transform sports media from what is traditionally more kind of mass media centric content into more personalized, curated content that speaks directly to the fan.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Chris. And just for everybody watching, one of the really cool things that Chris showed me was actually their podcast is on Spotify, and the use case that he gave was talking about fantasy football, and it's a specific podcast with your fantasy football players. So it gives updates, real time updates on your players, and that's just one example. But it's so powerful, Chris. And one of the things that I thought was interesting you mentioned was just talking about how this new generation, especially Gen Z, they're just accustomed to listening and watching content, whether it be on like Instagram Reels or TikTok or whatever. So, with all that being said, I mean, we talked about this shift from post COVID. What do you think is driving the shift specifically in sports, and how should these teams and brands be adapting their content strategy based on that?
I think personalization has just become the word of the year, and it has been. To be honest, we've been talking about personalization in sports for years, but I think that as AI emerges in all these different areas of business and daily life, and people are using these tools to get, hyper personalized content for all these other use cases. I think there's the fans are starting to really crave more personalized content that can be tailored to them. I don't know about everyone here, but I've got 10, 20 different sports, apps on my phone, and I've got to toggle to 8 different places just to get the information that I want, right? Betting, fantasy, teams, leagues, players, I mean, you name it. But I think there's use cases in lots of other, verticals where consumers are expecting personalized experiences. And we have the technology now to not only create personalized, text-based content, but we can now embark on personalized podcasts, personalized video content. And I think, short form, digestible content is what younger folks are really craving. But that doesn't mean that AI is going to replace all of the phenomenal user generated content, the creators, the writers, the broadcasters. Like, you can't truly replicate that sort of amazing content. But what we want to um, really open everybody's eyes up to is that layer where if you had unlimited resources from influencers, creators, voiceover, podcast hosts 24/7, what would you do? Instead of putting up a tweet, because that's all you had time for, or an image on social on your story, right? What would you create? What would you turn into audio? And I think that's really where we're trying to open up the market's eyes to a new way to engage with fans and a new medium. Because AI voice it's been around, right? It's been used in different formats. But for sports, we're really focused on leveraging AI that solves a challenge for sports marketers and speaks the language of sports to sports fans. I think sports in particular really wants to know that the products and services and tools that they're using are tailored to their business needs. The way that we talk about sports, the jargon, the lingo, the way that we communicate is different than these generalist AI tools, are built for. Player pronunciations, right? Wouldn't be very wouldn't be all that on target if your AI voice model called the greatest 3 point shooter of all time Stephen Curry, right? You want to talk about losing an audience. Sports betting, right? Reading out plus 120 ML instead of plus 120 money line. So I think that the conversation is really like, what do the sports marketers want and need, and how can we tailor something to them? But at the end of the day, it's all about the fan. Like, how can we give the fan more information, more targeted, tailored information in a medium that they want, that they can listen to on the go? And I just think that's where AI is really going to be able to make the greatest impact is in the scalability of this content creation and the ability to speak to the fans at a more granular level.
Yeah, I think Chris, you definitely hit the nail on the head. It's all about just enhancing that fan experience. If you keep that at the center of whatever it is that companies are doing that are using this AI, I think that's just the overall driver that's going to push the industry forward, make these experiences better. And just to hit on one of the points you mentioned earlier, talking about personalization and creating valuable experiences, like that one use case that we talk about, if you have the multiple apps and you're trying to figure out, what's a central place that you can get all that information, that just makes sense to have a personalized podcast summarizing everything that all your sports bets, all of your fantasy draft like updates or whatever. That is so valuable to create specific and personalized content. Now, going to another point that made just after that, you talked about authenticity and how AI is not going to be stealing jobs from people, and that's the big misconception that I think a lot of sports marketers have. Can you go a little bit further on how you think AI can actually help creators? You mentioned they can do other things, but like what do you really see being the big value add to those audiences?
Yeah, I think authenticity is the number one term that gets, asked of us. And I think that there's a couple of ways to put it. Like, look, there's a pretty salesy, brash way that I like to joke, and it's about, and it's like, well, are all humans authentic? Are all influencers and creators like actually authentic, or are they trying to elicit a response? Are they trying to get you to convert, based on their, the way that they're putting out content? So I think that authenticity, we need to reframe what that definition is. Authenticity does not immediately mean all human content is authentic. I think the way that we like to look at it is like humans make mistakes, they mispronounce things, they get data wrong, but we hold AI to a different standard. Okay, that's cool. I think that's reasonable. Um, but for us, authenticity is creating content that speaks the language of sports, right? That can be accurate, that can be credible. And there's really nothing more authentic than personalizing content, right? Being able to leverage, your own fandom and your own data to be able to create content that resonates with you at the individual level. Now, when it comes to the concept of AI replacing jobs, like there will be components of AI and AI voice that will make sports marketers go, could I do this with technology instead of my human resources? Sure. I think where we want to play is in all of those areas where those human creators don't have the time, bandwidth, or capacity. We've talked to multiple social media creators, and here's how their week looks. They spend all weekend researching so that they can put out a podcast on Monday. They edit it on Monday, they put it out on Tuesday, they clip it and start posting it on social on Wednesday and Thursday. Well, the game day news cycle has moved on, right? Like sports news happens around the clock. And yet, marketers have to make business decisions, right? It's like, what do we talk about? We talk about the same five things that every other, media publication talks about. Or do we go into more dark, dark, deep corners of sports, right? Where it's like we can find new stories and new opportunities to engage fans, and I think that's what we want to unlock. Is now having unlimited access to voiceover, can we create more social content, right? Can we convert newsletters or SMS into more dynamic audio content instead of static text? um, you know, Really our big bet is that the in-app user experience, on site in-app is going to really transition from static text, data image-based user experience into conversational audio. People are going to be more accustomed to just asking your site or your app a question so that they can get the answer that they want immediately. And so I think that really reframing the conversation around AI replacing podcasters or replacing creators to how can sports marketers create more content in a medium that fans want to generate more value. I think that's really where we want to play. And as a B2B company, our our ethos is really being a partner and an ally to sports marketers, not trying to replace those jobs. It's to make those marketers more impactful.
Everything you just mentioned there, Chris, it definitely makes sense to just focus on what you said earlier, like authenticity and making it personalized. So, with all that being said, obviously you've been in the shoes of a lot of where a lot of these people in the room are, like the entrepreneur shoes in the startup. Having been successful and exited a couple of companies over your career, and then obviously in the position you're in now, given the landscape of where we're at with the advancements in AI, what advice would you have for a sports business entrepreneur to best leverage some of these tools right now?
I think there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of expectation for everyone to use AI for everything, and I don't necessarily think that's required. I think there's there needs to be an appetite for testing because those that are using AI are simply going to be able to do things faster. Um, but I think being open minded to different tools and finding partners that can understand the challenges that sports marketers face. I think that's really why we wanted to niche within the sports vertical is because there's too many generalist AI tools that are built for everyone that may not, understand the nuances of the sports industry. So, finding AI tools that understand sports, that have teams that and use cases and case studies within the sports ecosystem. But I just highly encourage everybody to think about some of the small, simple use cases of AI that they can add to their day to day that can help them save 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there, an hour there, because it really compounds and enables us to get more out of the day that we previously had to grind through, right? So I think for us, one of the core things is being able to have one-to-one conversations, right? Like we're still talking to every new user. We're still having calls with every new free trial person that signs up. We're making sure that we can communicate that we want to be a part of this space, not just build a tool that's you know going to take over, right? It's sports is still very much relationship driven, and we want to keep that kind of human plus AI one-two punch together. And so I think for sports marketers, for anybody in sports that's, you know, finding it hard to navigate all of the noise of AI, would just recommend carving out some time each day, each weekend, to test new tools to see what's gonna help them move the needle and make them more efficient.
Great. Thanks again, Chris. And before we open it up for Q&A here, any last words you'd want to share with the audience?
You know, I think be open. Be open to how AI is really changing things. And look, if we took away the term AI, just be everyone's open to innovation, right? But I think you throw AI in there and there's this stigma that, it's bad actor companies, it's people that don't understand my challenges. I think being open to what's out there is really, really important. And I'll just say this from a sports perspective. This is all coming down the pipeline. ESPN just announced their ESPN D2C product. It is absolutely all AI powered. It is using AI voice, it's using AI to personalize the fan experience. And I think that the writing's on the wall of how AI is going to be able to impact sports. And it's here, and those that get out in front of it, I think, are going to benefit. But using it in the right way, in the right use cases for your business is critical. But um, yeah, happy to share more.
Cool. Yeah, and last thing, how can the audience stay in touch with you, Chris?
I'm on LinkedIn. Spend a lot of time there, kind of trying to share ideas, and so adding me on LinkedIn is kind of the first recommendation. Would love to all kind of spark up some conversation, share ideas, and that's kind of my main area of focus where I try to connect with as many people as I can and share some ideas, put some thought leadership content out there, and build up the network.
Awesome. Thank you again, Chris.